That's pretty good, right? Welcome back to Closer Broke, and where I poker vlog, and you guys is watching. Has anyone ever even done that before? Who am I kidding? There's millions of poker vlogs out there. Nonetheless, today we are watching a very fun and special episode. We're playing 5, 10, 20, 40, 80, 160 at even some point in today's episode. Your favorite home game, the vault game. Yes, this is a home game that takes place in an old bank. There's even a vault in this damn place. That's probably you probably understood that's why we call it the vault game. Nonetheless, really fun episode with a great group of guys, a bunch of people that watch the vlog, friends of the vlog. It's gonna be a great time. So let's hop over there and get into a really fun session at the vault. Back at one of my favorite places that I've played poker, the vault game. In this very first hand, we've already got quite a bit to go over, as there's a $20 straddle on, and I'm out of the gun, and we look down at 8-7 suited. Gonna be a little tougher in a full ring game, but there is no rake in this game, so why not just raise it up here and get a little splashy. I'm making $60 to go from under the gun. Next to act call is the cutoff, and the straddle call, we're going 4 ways off to a flop that comes queen, queen 6 with 1 spade. Not a whole lot going for me here. When that's the case, when it's checked over to me, although I only have 8 high, 4 ways doesn't seem like I'm in the business of starting here with a bluff. I go and check it. Luckily for me, everyone checks it over to the turn card, which comes a 7 of clubs. Now we're cooking with oil. Is that what they say? Either way, we've got a pretty clear bet here. Although there is some times where I think I can check call. I think betting small is not a bad idea. I decided to bet pretty small, about a quarter the size of the pot, going 60. And luckily for us, we get no action. Everyone decides to fold. I am not complaining. Denying equity seemed like the best option, and that's for sure. Things move quickly. We're now in the month of March. We are already just a few months out from the World Series of Poker. And if you guys haven't known, I mention all the time, WSP giveaway going on for members as well as viewers of the channel. Don't need to harp on that, but what I do need to harp on is hand number 2 of today's session. There's a $40 straddle on, and the button decides to limp. I'm in the $20 straddle, and I look down to ace deuce of clubs. I decide to isolate here to $130. The $40 straddle calls, and the limper decides to call. We're going multi-way off to a flop that looks pretty good to me. Flop comes out ace 9 7. There is a club out there, so we do flop ourselves a backdoor draw as well as top pair. Top pair seems like a good candidate to c-bet with sometimes. I bet 75. The limper calls. So we're going off to a turn card here that comes the 5 of hearts. With the action checked over to me, I now have to ask myself, do I think our opponent here for the button is the type of player to limp a hand like 6-8 suited? To be totally honest, I don't think so all that often, and he definitely will never have 6-8 off, so we can pretty much delete most of those straight draws. I think he can definitely limp a hand like 10-8 suited, a hand like Jack-10 suited, Queen-10 suited, all makes sense, as well as obviously maybe some holdings like Ace-5 or Ace-4, Ace-3, those kind of aces as well. So I decided to do something somewhat of a merge bet. I bet out 200. There is a small chance I get my opponent to fold a hand that's slightly better, like Ace-3. But there's, also a as often chance that my opponent with a hand like Jack-10 could still call and try to hit his gut shot, or a hand like 10-8 and looking to still get there with his straight. I don't know. That's just my reasoning in real time and why I decided to bet that. I don't love the bet, but here I am. Our opponent decides to eventually make the fold, though. So good for us, but don't know if I played that perfectly. I'm sure I will be let known in the comment section down below. Once again, the action has been really off the chains here as the straddles have been going. And the thing is pretty interesting. This is a 1,500 cap game. Doesn't sound like all that much considering we're playing in a bank. But there's been $40 and $20 and $80 straddles even going quite regularly. So we're playing like 70 or even sometimes 50 or 30 big blinds effective depending on how big the straddle is. In this next hand, that is exactly the case. When the straddle is on to 20, I'm in an early position and I look down at ace queen of clubs. I raise it to 60. Next to act, which is that wild player we've been talking about, decides to 3-bet me to 200. He's been 3-betting and 4-betting and going crazy all night. We finally got him right where we want him. With the action folded back over to me, we're both playing about 1,400-ish effective, with is good for about 70-ish big blinds. I think it'd be a little tricky here if I just decided to do something cute and throw in our old 4 ball to like 600 or 550. I think I'd just rather go all in here and leave my opponent to have the decision. If he wants to be a real hero and fold a hand like tens or jacks, that's great for me. And on the other side, if my opponent's feeling real gambly, he's probably going to want to get it in there with ace-jack suited, ace-10 suited, those kind of weird holdings as well. And it's probably best to see 5 cards. Either way, I decide to go all in, and my opponent obliges by immediately calling and letting me know that he has pocket kings. Well, our opponent asks if we can run it twice, and as I always mention to you, I'm happy to do it as many times as our opponent wants. So I agree. I oblige, I should say. We're going off to 2 boards here, looking to catch an ace or some type of flush draw, straight draw. The first board comes out, 10, 9, 4, turn king of clubs. We now have a royal flush draw. Oh my god, a royal draw. This is it right here, the river card. Brick, 9 of spades. Oh my goodness. We're going to need to get lucky here or we're going to be stuck quite a bit. The second board comes out, 10, 10, 5. Not looking good. No backdoors. The turn card comes a 6 of hearts. Well, we're giving the chips over to our opponent until the river is an ace of hearts. Oh my gosh. We needed that so badly. We would have been in the hole for quite a bit. And just like that, we still have a pulse. We're still in the game. Honestly, this session has had so many ups and downs. It's hard to get it all on video here because I know you guys don't like watching a lot of spots where we go all in and we chop the board, and I try to keep that for the most part off the vlog. But let me tell y'all, we have been all in a lot today, and all in with the best of it a lot today. Ace king versus king queen, ace queen versus queen jack, and we've chopped or lost all of these pots. It's kind of been ridiculous. But in this next hand, there's some more shenanigans and some more craziness to unfold. As middle position raises to 40, and the action folds to me in the cutoff, and I look down at pocket aces. American Airlines, we decided 3-bet to 150, a little bit on the larger side. Again, I've got to not allow my opponents behind me to, still want to get in the mix. The opponent in the button that I have to definitely be considerate about and curious, as he's very curious. He's been wanting to get in the mix quite a bit. I've got to really price him out of here. The way the action folds back to our opponent, who decides to make the call after a bit of talking, and the flop looks pretty good. 10-3 deuce. The action checked over to me. I decided down bet. Betting small here makes sense. I'd be doing this with most of my range. He decides to call. The turn card comes an 8 of spades, bringing it back to our flush draw. Oh, the action checked over to me. I once again think it's best for me to size up, so I bet 275. Our opponent once again makes a call, and the river card comes out a 3 of clubs. With the action checked over to me, I don't improve to the flush, but I do block the nut flush. There's only a couple of combinations of flush draws that my opponent can have here credibly. Maybe all the king high flushes that contain a Broadway card, or queen high flushes that contain a Broadway card we can give. But outside of that, not a whole lot, especially since I have the ace of spades. So when the action checks over to me, I'm in between going for value, thin value albeit, but I think it's pretty much a good idea. Pairing the bottom card, I don't think changes anything ever, so I decide to throw out a value bet of 350, and I get snapped off. Our opponent shows queen 3. Yeah, so we got called down there by bottom pair. Our opponent ends up binking it there on the river. 2 red cards there. I don't know how it gets there on the river, but I can never complain about getting the action, especially from our friend the recycler. Painful for sure, but it's just always coming, isn't it? Either way, another tough beat, another tough spot, going to the river with as much equity as I had to just... let's move on. We're vibing out. Okay, why am I bothering you guys in the middle of today's episode? Outside of the fact that it's good to break up the monotony of poker hands, I've got something important to tell y'all. If you guys didn't know, I'm actually going to be hosting a public 2-5 game. Something that is way more attainable and way more comfortable for a lot of you guys to play. You guys can catch a bunch of punts. It's going to be literally hosted every single week, every single Sunday at 1 p.m. at the Lucky Lady. If you guys want to sign up for this weekend, just in a couple days, I'll be hosting a game there at 1 p.m. You can sign in and log in, put your name in by using Poker Atlas. You guys can also join the game by calling in. Their number should be over here somewhere. Again, Poker Atlas, or if you guys aren't as tech savvy like myself, make sure to give them a call at that number I mentioned. It should be pretty simple. Yes, I'll play in the game. Starts at 1 o'clock. We have another bunch of friendly faces. AG will be there as well. Leche, are you going to be there? He might not want to be there, honestly. But maybe he will. I mean, time will tell. Either way, we've got some more poker to go over, and trust me, you guys don't want to miss it because there's a little bit of a comeback. There's some excitement. Let's hop into it. I have the unwavering mentality of never giving up. And that's a really good thing and a really bad thing. Let me know in the comment section down below how you guys approach a session where you're just running awful. Sure, we put this beautiful, not so dangerous word attached to it called variance, but sometimes it really hurts, and I just am not great at walking away from the table when the cards are just not falling in my favor. Let me know how you react to it. Either way, we have another hand to go over here. The $20 straddle is on. The small blind is where I land. And after there is a limp from a late position player, the action falls on me, and I decide to isolate with this hand. Talking about variance, yeah, adding variance by isolating with hands as weak as this, probably not a great idea, but it's what I do, so I gotta show it. I'm making $100 to go. The straddler calls, the big blind calls, and the limper calls. We're going 4 ways off to a flop that somehow has given us quite the miracle. Ace, ace, 10 with 2 spades. A flush draw's out there. This is a really wet board texture. With the action on me, considering there is still a chance for a better ace to be out there, I decided to bet really small here. I bet 100. I think keeping the aggression is nice on a board like this. It's definitely going to favor me the most over most of the callers here, but I can't completely discount anybody else from having anything here. Either way, I make it 100 going to 4th. The straddler makes a call and the limper makes a call. We're going 3 ways off to a turn card with a pot already over $700 with trips. That comes a queen of clubs. It now brings in some gut shots. It brings in some more pair plus flush draw, pair plus straight draw opportunities. And with the action starting on me, once again, I think betting here is probably okay. I bet for what is about a third or a little more than 40%. When I decide to bet 300, the straddler decides to call, but this time the limper folds. And we're going off to a river card that comes the 5 of spades. Really, really unfortunate, as now a hand like ace-5 beats us, and if that was not bad enough, the flush draw gets there, and that's definitely something that my opponent can be holding here. I decide to check it over to my opponent to allow him to bluff with his hands that are bluffing and bet with his hands that are betting for value. Our opponent thinks about it for a moment before deciding to go all in for $735. With the action back on me against this opponent, it's the opponent we've talked about all session. He's definitely capable of getting mixy with some hands that are pretty junky. And with all that being said, I think it'd be a little too tight to fold a hand this strong. It's hard to end up on this river with a better hand. Sometimes we'll have middling flushes, but once again, I think I would probably check them on the turn. So I don't know. This is a pretty strong hand. I have trips. I just call. I call. What can I do? I call. Our opponent shows us the bad news and flips over Jack 6 or Jack 7 of spades. Couldn't put him on that hand. Definitely give him credit for it. Unfortunately, this time around, he gets the better of us. Although for us SoCal folk, it's freezing outside, this room is getting hot, and even hotter because I can't win a hand and I'm fuming. Either way, in this following hand, the straddle is on. Under the gun limps for 20. The cutoff isolates to 75. The action's on me on the button. We look down at a suited Broadway. Queen 10 of diamonds. I'm going to go ahead and isolate the isolator. I 3-bet here to $200. The big blind cold calls. The initial raiser decides to call as well. We're going 3 ways off to a flop that has over 600 in the middle. That is, I mean, picture perfect. Queen 10, 6 with 2 spades. Action checks to me, and I decide to c-bet here for 300. A little bit on the bigger side, trying to go half pot. But again, I need to start charging all the draws that are out there. Our opponent from the big blind, that was the pre-flop cold caller, makes the call, and the initial raiser folds. We're going off to a turn card that comes a beautiful 4 of spades. Yeah. Did you guys catch the... You guys caught it, right? Obviously not the best turn card in the world, but outside of a few combinations, if I'm being totally fair, there's not a whole lot of just cold calling to 3-bets from the blinds that interact with flushes here. Outside of maybe ace-jack of spades, I don't see my opponent having much else. Maybe ace-10 of spades sometimes, but even that, cold calling a 3-bet out of position is really loose. And this player profile, I'm telling you, very tight, plays very solid, not going to be getting out of line pre-flop. I think for the most part, we can credibly give our opponent a hand like kings, ace-queen, king-queen, and probably that is about it. I'm honestly just putting my opponent on one pair holdings, or maybe, just maybe, a really strong combo draw. With the action checked over to me, at this point, I know there's about 1,200-ish in the pots, and I want to really put the maximum pressure on. I decided to go all in for what is around $1,300. My opponent goes deep into the tank for quite some time. I'm begging for a call here. I obviously know I'm good at this point, especially when he's tanked this long. He never has a flush, and after quite a bit of tanking, my opponent decides to make the call. We decide to run it out once for maximum pain, and he shows ace-queen with no spade. We're looking golden for a massive double up, and the river is an 8 of clubs. Oh my goodness. That is exactly what the doctor had ordered. Looks like things are starting to cool down just a bit. Well, after that massive double up, let me tell you, to me, it feels like anything is possible. And after being into this game for nearly $4,000, whew, we're near even. In this following hand, the cutoff makes it $60 to go. The action folds to me on the button, and we look down at a beautiful suited connector, 10-9 of diamonds. We're going to go ahead and 3-bet this. I make it 180. Only the opponent makes the call. We're going off to a flop here that comes ace, king, 7 with a backdoor diamond draw for me, and a whole lot of nothing, if we're being quite honest, for me as well. With the action checking over to me, I go ahead and c-bet here for 100. Either way, our opponent decides to make the call, and the turn card comes a really great card. It comes a queen of diamonds. At this point, once again, my opponent decides to check it over to me, and at this point, once again, I think betting is probably the best thing to do. The problem with my bet here in real time is I go ahead and bet 250. I think this is way too small. I think if I wanted to bet, I think it's probably the best to go bigger. I think right now we're going to be mainly trying to get a hand that has maybe a pair and a gut shot, and those hands are probably most likely going to be folding to some higher level of aggression. By betting so small, I allow my opponent with a hand like a top pair middling kicker to continue. And at the end of the day, I only have 10 high, although I have a flush draw and a gutter ball to go along with it. Albeit not a great hand, but my opponent decides to just make the call. We're going off to a river card that comes a 10 of clubs. Sure, we now improve to some showdown equity, but when the opponent checks it over to me, I feel pretty confident that my opponent does not have a jack here. I honestly don't need to bet all that much. I don't think my opponent can have not a whole lot better than maybe 2 pair, and those hands are just going to call whether I bet really, really big or bet kind of medium-ish, and I think that my opponent's going to snap fold any 1 pair holding. Either way, my opponent checks it over to me, and again, this is just my logic in real time. I think this is just a really bad run out to bluff on. I don't get there in any way, and continuing to bluff here, even if I make a pair, not likely that I'm good, but it's probably just best to just check it back and give up. In real time, I bet 400. My opponent thinks about it for a moment before deciding to raise to 1,500. Definitely was not expecting that, not in the slightest. I go ahead and snap fold, and later on, this gentleman by the name of Nelson, who's a fan of the vlog, massive shout out to Nelson, he would later on tell me that he had ace 10, so he was value raising with top and bottom pair. Really interesting there. Can't blame him for that because he obviously owned my soul. Today's session might as well have been at Disneyland, as the roller coasters that I've been going through have been an absolute massive headache. Either way, in this next hand, we don't have to wait in a long line to wait for it. And we have something special. The hijack makes it 50. I'm on the button and we look down at pocket Kirans, pocket kings. Let's go. I go in 3-bet to 150. The small blind cold calls and the hijack then 4-bet jams for 425. As we've talked about before, 5-betting is always like the nuts, and we would obviously completely remove our opponent here from the small blind from calling. I wouldn't usually want to do this if there was more money to play behind, but considering technically outside of the one person that I'm worried about that jammed all in, I'm playing heads up for the rest of the time against my opponent in position. This seems like a really good spot to put in a little bit of a trap. I decide to just make the flat call and allow my small blind player to come along, which he ends up deciding to do just that. Sounds like a pretty good idea to me. We're going 3 ways off to a flop with one player already all in. That falls 9-9-5 rainbow. The action once again checked over to me. I think at this point, it would look really weak if I just go all in. I probably never do this with a hand like aces or kings, right? Or, I mean, how would I even have those hands? I just flat call it pre-flop. I'm trying to get in the mind of an OMC and making all these crazy plays in my head. So I go and just go all in, jamming for about 1,100 effective, which once again is about the size of the pots. Our opponent tanks for quite some time before eventually deciding to make the call. We like the sound of that. We decide to run out the board twice here. The first run out comes an 8 of diamonds and the ace of hearts. Not a great one, if I may say so myself. The second run out comes a 7 of diamonds and the 10 of diamonds, bringing it back to a flush. Once again, not great. But to our luck, we end up with the winner after we show down pocket kings. Oh my goodness, pocket Kirons at the perfectly timed moment. We are now in Profitville. This is a miracle. I'm on cloud 9, and we've got some more hands to go over. In this following hand, the button raises to 50. The small blind calls. I find myself in the big blind. I decided just flicking the call here with ace 6 off. Honestly, probably shouldn't be doing stuff like this. Seems like an easy fold out of position, but hey, I'm here to play. The straddle calls as well. And the flop comes out 4-3 deuce rainbow. The small blind decides to lead out here for 75 bucks, which is, you know, pretty interesting. With the action on me here on the big blind, we can peel it off with a little gutter ball, so I go and do just that. The straddler calls as well. We're going off to a turn card that improves us, but not in the way we were hoping for. As the turn comes a 6 of spades. At this point, my opponent from the small blind decides to lead up for 200, and I pick up a live read. I'm not the greatest live reader in poker, obviously. I make a ton of mistakes, but in this real time, there was a very genuine indecision and indecisiveness, if that's a word, from my opponent. I could just feel it by the way he bet, by the mannerisms, by the way he looked at his cards, by the way he was looking at the board. To me, it felt genuine, like my opponent was bluffing, like he really didn't know what was happening in the hand. And although I have to worry about an opponent behind me, when I have a live read like this that I'm willing to bet money on, literally, I'm going to go with it. And I don't need to blast off and raise here because, like I said, a person's stacked behind me, but I can bet on my live read here by making the call. If there's any raising behind me, we have an easy fold, obviously. But for the time being, I feel like I have the best hand. I call. Luckily for us, the straddler folds. The river card looks to be pretty safe as it comes to deuce of spades. It does bring in that backdoor flush, but we do have the ace of spades to block the nut flush. Once again, my opponent bets out 500, and like I mentioned, considering that I'm going with my live read, I felt a massive amount of weakness on the turn. I've been playing poker long enough to see a really weak bet when I can notice one, I can sniff one out. I go ahead and make the call pretty quickly, nearly beat him into the pot, and my opponent shows me a freaking doozy. Nelson flips over the old 7 deuce off. Oh my goodness. I mean, we had a dead-on read on the turn there. I would have literally bet my house on it. Unfortunately, I didn't even think twice to look at him on the river. I just didn't think that the river changed anything, but obviously it did. Unfortunate for us there. I guess a live read's only as good as, if you hold. Well, quite some time has passed from the last hand to the one you guys are about to see. There's a couple things I have to fill you in on. I didn't record everything, and as you guys have mentioned in the past, you guys don't really care to watch me show 2 full boards if we run them out. That, coupled with the fact that the pots were kind of small, we ended up playing like 3 or 4, like $300 to $500 pots for all-ins, and I ended up getting scooped on like all of them. Ace-king versus aces and little hands like that ended up popping up, and they definitely hurt. Nonetheless, we end up here with crumbs left in our stack. In this last hand, middle position makes it 60 as a $20 straddle is on. The action folds to me in the big blind, and I look down an ace-10 offsuit. Not a great hand for sure, especially against a middle position open. But considering I only have about 40 big blinds, seems like a not that bad idea to get it in here and run it once. I decided to go all in for 860. The straddler tank folds, and then the middle position player decides to eventually, after some thought, call. We decide to run out the board once for maximum pain. And the flop comes out a wonderful 10-9-4. But we're drawing nearly dead against pocket nines, a flopped set. Oh man, we just could not catch a break today. Ugh. The board runs out with a jack on the turn, and I have succumbed to my fate. I'm drawing literally dead. The river is a deuce. And to end our day here in Disneyland, as most of us do, we came for the rides, didn't have much fun. Pretty much came here for somebody else and left with significantly less money than we entered the park with. The pain is settling in. The frustration is now starting to sink in. But, hey, as we all know, that's poker. And that's why we love it, baby. Because we're going to be on the right side. We're going to be on the wrong side of a cooler that we're going to end up on the right side on. That's what I want to say. Either way, let's start over to me, talk about it a little more in person. So obviously not what we were looking for in a session. I mean, it was just bad. It was like nothing was good about it. But you got to really roll with the punches. As you guys have seen, there's been some point where we've just been unstoppable and running so well. And other points where just, you know, this happens. We do a great job of following a really big win with a really annoying lot. I feel a heater on its way. I could just feel it in the soul, in the depths of my soul, in my heart. I know it's coming. It's bound to come. And one thing I'll promise you is that I'm doing my very best to continue to grow and play some better poker. Outside of that, I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. If you guys did, make sure to click like and subscribe down below. We were into the game for $4,000 and out for a grand total of $0. That's not good, honestly. If I'm doing the math, it's like, what is that? Minus 4,000. Carry the zero. Yeah, if you carry the zero and then put over the 4, yeah, about 4,000. Nonetheless, my little guy here is freaking out, so that's he's not freaking out as much anymore. Either way, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the, you know, I don't know, just whatever you need to do. Share it with a friend, tell your mom about the video, tell your dad about it, tell your cousin, your brother, your sister, whoever. Thank you guys so much for watching. Enjoy yourselves and have a very happy day. Make sure to sign up on Poker Atlas. We're playing Sunday 2-5 public game, bunch of fun, crazy, all that. Lucky lady. Check me out. I'll see you guys there.